Critical Dan, the movie man. Find out which movies he's gonna pan. His biggest gripe's a film being bland. So here's the movies he cannot stand.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Critical Dan, the movie man. And today, I've uncovered something big.
So the Oscars rolled around recently, and as always, I was very excited to hear some juicy film news and find out who won the Oscars. I was hanging around with my friend Rick, and every second I'd frantically refresh my Twitter, hoping to hear who was the winner. It was nearing midnight though, and I still wasn't seeing anything. I was visibly frustrated by this, and my friend was wondering why I was so upset. When I tell him the Oscars still hasn't announced their winner, he says, "Oh, yeah they did. Mank won that." And I just couldn't believe this. Mank. A movie no one gives a shit about. A movie nobody's seen. Why would they pick that? My friend Mo retorted, "Okay, well what would you have rather won?" Well, if you're watching this, then buckle in, because you're about to find out the most underrated film of 2020. Christopher Nolan is a name closely associated with excellence. Every couple of years a new movie of his is announced, and it becomes this big social event that everybody is ready to experience.
I'm just excited, man. It's been a long time. Like, we started showing the trailer like 7 months ago, so it's like...
The Dark Knight came out, everyone talked about it. Inception came out, everyone talked about it. The Dark Knight Rises came out, even the news talked about it. Interstellar came out, it blew everybody's minds away.
Oh man, it was off the chain.
Was that an adventure or what? I mean, it seemed like...
yeah, it was
Didn't it seem
an
like
adventure.
epic? I mean, it was like 2 or 3 movies in one.
It was a good movie.
Each time these films dropped, they were like atomic bombs. Everyone would talk about them for weeks because they'd been blown away by them. But a new masterpiece of his dropped not long ago, and oddly, no one's talking about it. Tenet. It's one of the smartest and subversive films to come out in recent memory, and it's no secret why. Well, actually, it is. And I think I figured out why that may be. Listen, Tenet is the film that Hollywood doesn't want you to see, which understandably sounds far-fetched, but allow me to explain. For some reason, this movie's gotten all kinds of bad press recently, trying to dissuade the public from watching it, saying things like the sound design has been sabotaged so it's impossible to hear them talk, or that the film is needlessly long and boring. This was all just in fact propaganda, and an attempt to make sure that Nolan would not reclaim his throne as the box office king. Because if you actually watch the film, you'd be quite shocked to discover Tenet is actually a commentary on modern Hollywood and the film industry. So first, I'm going to address the problem that everybody talks about, the sound mixing. Well, this is actually somewhat true. It's very hard to hear a lot of the dialogue in the movie, and as I watched, I tried so hard to listen, because Nolan spent all his time writing this dialogue, and I wasn't ready to let it go to waste. After the intense strain on my head that trying to focus caused me, I finally started to be able to make out what people were saying, and it surprised me. It was all nonsense. He takes very roundabout ways to explain simple things, but uses big words to make them sound as complicated as possible.
Cause comes before effect.
No, that's just the way we see time.
Well, what about free will?
That bullet wouldn't have moved if you hadn't put your hand there. Either way we run the tape, you made it happen. Don't try to understand it.
I thought, that's kind of amateur. That's the kind of thing you'd see in a low-effort sci-fi movie.
Ergo! Vis-a-vis! Concordantly!
Now, that's not normal for Nolan. His dialogue is usually excellent. Just watch The Dark Knight or Inception, Interstellar. Need I go on? So, dialogue like this that's not very well thought out, it's not a thing Nolan does. But as I watched, some important words echoed in my head. An important detail I've heard various reviewers say before I saw the movie. That Tenet is a puzzle. It's a complicated riddle that the audience has to decipher. So, naturally, this got my mind racing. I started analyzing the movie for clues, and The badly written, hard-to-hear dialogue started to stay with me. Why would Nolan do this? Why would he have intended to purposefully write like this? This question was driving me insane. As the movie went along, there was something else I noticed. Some kind of restlessness. It was me. I could barely stay in my seat. It was like this urge to get up out the theater and find some way to stimulate myself. But what would Nolan think of me if I did that? I knew he was counting on me. I had to persevere, so I did. Eventually, we had gotten to the part that I was waiting to see the most, when the main guy goes into the backwards world. This is what I was excited for. The sensation of being in a reality where everything is inverted. That would be intense. It just begged the question for me. How was Nolan going to convey this sensation through the eyes of the camera? And then it just kind of happened. The main character is just standing outside and things are moving backwards. He's just there. A lot of action and backwards explosions were happening, and to my surprise, it actually didn't feel that far off from normal action scenes. It was kind of underwhelming, I'd even say. It didn't take very long before I couldn't even tell anymore what was supposed to be happening backwards and what was supposed to be happening forwards. It all just kind of blended and mushed together. This didn't seem right. I had seen a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I knew for a fact they put excruciating work into choreographing these scenes to the point where stuntmen had to move and fight backwards in real time, and I could tell it was taking a mental toll on everybody on set. It looked exhausting. Yet, while watching the movie, you wouldn't get that impression at all. Why wasn't all of this hard work and effort translating into the movie then? Had I wrongfully put my hopes in Christopher Nolan? There has to be something going on. But wait, this is still a puzzle, right? A riddle for the audience to solve. That's what I remembered hearing. That was when it hit me. The pretentious and hard-to-hear dialogue, the excruciating to sit-through action scenes, what did Nolan mean by all of this? None of these things are consistent with what I know the man for. It's like one of those hostage situations where the victim does seemingly normal things, but if you know them personally, you'd know it's out of character for them to do this. Like a cry for help, blink twice if you are in danger kind of behavior. Most of all, why was Nolan so adamant about making this movie backwards if it did so little to enhance my film-going experience? It was at that moment I had a flashback. Back to a few years ago, in fact. I was working a shift for my job at Rouse's, and I was talking to a nearby coworker. The movie 6 Underground, starring Ryan Reynolds, had just come out, and I asked him what he thought of it. And he said it was painful. It felt like he had taken way too much Adderall and then started watching the Transformers movies backwards. Backwards. That's it! It all started coming together. It finally hit me. I figured it out right there. That is what Nolan was going for. That was the riddle. Tenet is about the current state of the film industry. A commentary. A parody, even. It all started making sense. It was like a moment of clarity. Every choice was intentional. His use of filming backwards was to convey the feeling of watching your typical shitty action movie. These are the kind of movies that Hollywood demands and pushes out onto the masses all the time. And think about it. Christopher Nolan has always been mistreated by Warner Brothers for a good while now. He's probably been displeased with the film landscape that they are responsible for, and their constant studio meddling with his pictures probably put him on edge. It was also recently that he even parted ways with them. Tenet was his last movie at Warner Brothers. When you think about it, Tenet was his last big middle finger at them. His, "This is what you want, right? Well, here you go. I'm done." It's also the first movie of its kind in Nolan's library. A meta film. The movie is a blatant expose, and the big guys at Hollywood felt threatened by it. If everyone saw this movie like they had with Nolan's last movies, people like Michael Bay, for example, or Roland Emmerich would be finished. The masses would catch on, and they would realize the revolution that Nolan was trying to stir with the movie. Of course, it didn't catch on with the masses like that. So, obviously, that's not going to happen, but now, thanks to that, the movie kind of has a double meaning. You can rightfully assume that if anybody's going to watch it, it's going to be Christopher Nolan fans, and it kind of stands as a test of faith now. The people who just nod their heads and say, yes, this was a good movie, they're the fake Nolan fans, and he's calling them out. And it'll be the real Nolan fans that catch on to what he's actually doing. Now the movie works as a useful tool to filter out all of the yes-mans and people that'll just blatantly love things because it has Nolan's name on it, without giving them a real thought or having real appreciation for them. It's kind of clever in that way, just as clever as its attempt to be a Hollywood expose. The big suits at Hollywood found this movie intimidating, so they used their deep pockets to bury the movie in as much negativity as possible, so that no one would have to go see it. And no one would realize the movie is actually bad on purpose. And unfortunately, it worked. The movie was snubbed at the Oscars by the stupid Mank bullshit that literally nobody liked. And that's why I propose a new award show, one that could bring exposure to films that deserve it. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose the Golden Critical Dan Awards. Maybe by next Oscar season, I can make this a thing. Until then, I'm Critical Dan the Movie Man, and I hope you have a fantastic day.